Welcome to the Masculine Revolution, hosted by Jeremy Brown and myself, Murphy G. This is episode 39 with Brooke, Buchanan. Thanks for coming on this morning, Brooke.
Thanks.
This is a special episode. This marks our first female guest on the Masculine Revolution
gosh.
podcast. There you go. We get to hold that title for good, you know. Brooke is a member here and on staff at Foundation Church. She's the Next Steps director, which is you help people get connected, whether it's their first time or they've been here for a while. So you are the people person.
I am the people person.
You're married to Craig, and y'all have 6 children between you.
We do.
It says you would describe your family as unique, right?
It is.
Yeah. You also love the outdoors. You love to spend time walking outside and walking and looking for something special. Huh?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I kind of had your dad laughing about it.
Yeah.
I would love to find a secret garden. But,
Okay.
you know, it hasn't happened yet. It's fine.
You got to look behind walls.
I
Yeah.
know. Well, I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Where's your favorite place to walk at?
If it's somewhere in Noonan, I typically go to Browns Mill just because it's super close to where I live. But I also love Chattahoochee Bend. Callaway Gardens, though, is definitely, and it's super close as well. But I love going out there. It's for sure one of my favorite places.
Yeah, I love Callaway for sure. It says when you're walking, you're looking for something special.
Yeah.
What are we looking for?
So for real, I really would love to happen upon a secret garden, but also just anything, it's so silly to say a hidden treasure, but kind of like a hidden treasure. Like if I were to stumble upon, and it would never happen, but an old house that someone had forgotten about or something like that I could just explore. And it's funny, it's ridiculous, but it would be a lot of fun.
No, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Jeremy, you kind of want to bring us into?
Yeah, give us a little bit of context. You don't have to go in great detail of your life, but kind of give us an overview so people kind of know where you're coming from, what's your perspective or worldview or things like that.
Okay. Where I'm coming from. Okay. My family is incredibly unique. We're a blended family. So this is mine and Craig's second marriage. We have kind of the yours, mine, and ours kid dynamic where he had 4 boys, I had a daughter, and then we adopted a little girl together. So that's super unique. I have had the opportunity in my lifetime to be a lot of different things. I have been able to be a caretaker for my aunt, who is just for sure my role model in life. She was the most incredible woman I'll ever know. And then also I've been a working person full-time, a working person part-time, where I got to do a little bit of work and then also be home with my oldest daughter, Caroline. Then I went into single mom mode for several years, and then actually for a little while I got to be a stay-at-home mom, which was pretty incredible, and then back into the workforce. So I've kind of been able to do a little bit of a few things.
Yeah, broad perspective then.
Yeah. It has been. But now it's kind of in the realm of, we have kids that are, the oldest is 27, the youngest is 7. So we kind of have a wee bit of everything going on. But just balancing that. And I think it's always a balancing act of trying to figure out kind of the groove of things.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we approached you as we always do with guests, hey, what's something you're passionate about? What's something that's on your heart, your mind?
Yeah.
Share with us with what you came up with.
Yeah. So I super struggled with it. But the more and more I thought about it, and the more and more conversations I had with different women specifically, it's this idea of, and really it doesn't matter if you are someone that, if you're a female that works or if you're a female that stays home, there's just this expectation constantly of, no matter what it is, you have to be all in and give 100%. Now, I do work full time, and I work in ministry full time, which is a lot different than I hate to say like a normal 9 to 5, but it is a lot different. So through the lens of, I know here, whether here in previous jobs, the expectation is when I come in, I give 150%, just like everyone else there. But then also the expectation is that when I go home, I give 150% there. It doesn't matter if I actually only have 25% left. I have to give 150% there. And then also the pressure of, okay, I also need to be an incredible mom. I also need to be an incredible friend. I also need to take care of myself. And just all of these expectations that I feel like fly at you to be all of these things. And yet in a world that quickly changed and women began in the workforce and giving themselves 100% to that, all the changes that happen for women specifically, there really hasn't been a massive shift in the expectations placed on men. And so that is kind of, when you said, what are you passionate about? I was like, okay, well, maybe this is something we could talk about that I feel like is not something that's typically talked about.
Yeah. So you kind of shared with us some of those expectations.
Yeah.
Who do you think sets those expectations?
I think that is a really good question. I don't know that there are expectations that people always say out loud, like that it's, hey, this is, when you think about even in the workforce that the boss comes and says, hey, as a woman, these are my expectations of you. But I think there are kind of understood or unsaid expectations when it comes to the workforce that, hey, if you're a female and you want to be at this table, you better give just as much as every male at this table. And so I think that is kind of, again, an unsaid expectation from a boss standpoint. And then I think women put a heck of a lot of expectations on themselves. I mean, for sure, I don't know of a single woman who doesn't feel the pressure of, I hate to say perfection, but like meeting expectations, I think is a really big weight that we put on ourselves. And I think that men, whether or not they want to say it out loud, they have another set of expectations as well that, hey, I'm assuming and I'm expecting you to meet XYZ, whatever that is. And then, you add kids into that and they have their own set as well. But I think society, culture, there's just expectations from everywhere.
Yeah. Do you think those expectations, as far as the level of your baseline, are different between male and female? Yeah,
I think so. I think and I may be wrong, obviously I'm not a man. I think that even the expectations that women put on themselves, while men might have some, I think women put way more on themselves, thinking that that's what men expect. So their baseline is probably completely different than a male's baseline. Someone said the other day that she was killing herself to make sure when her husband came home that their house was perfect, that it was spotless, that it was clean, that it was exactly the peaceful home that he would want to come home to. Mm-hmm. And she was just stressing herself out about it. And he looked at her and said, why? Like, he came home one day early and the house was still a wreck. And she was like, just so embarrassed and just beating herself up about it. And he was like, what is wrong? And she was like, I didn't know you were coming home early, so I didn't have the house ready. And he was like, I don't care. I don't care if we go to bed every night and there are dishes in the sink. That is not a make or break for me. But in her mind, mm-hmm. the baseline was completely different than his baseline. He cared about other things. And so I think that it is for sure different for different people. So yeah.
Yeah. So as I'm thinking through that, that baseline, how do you think as male and female, we're living in the same world together, how do you think we could objectively start improving that?
Yeah. First, I think it's a long process. I don't think this is an overnight or 3 month or 6 month or let's put a plan in place and it's going to be fixed quickly.
Right.
I think it's a long time thing that we just consistently have to press into communication. Typically the biggest disappointments are unmet expectations or even unsaid expectations. So just having the conversation boldly to say like, hey, this is where I am. This is what I think. This is what I need. This is what I'm processing, whatever. Or like whatever that is. But just I think communication is key in that. Being willing to start the conversation for a woman to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. As a man to listen and not immediately jump to a justification, a defense, and explaining it off, whatever that is, but to just listen and then ask the question, okay, well, how do you feel like this is solved? How do you feel like I'm hearing you and what you're saying is important to me? But then also as a man to come to a female, whether it's your wife, your employee, your coworker, whatever that is, but just to say like, hey, where are you? You know, like where are you at this point? Because I do think women want a seat at the table, but I feel like as a woman with a seat at the table, I feel like I have to sacrifice something else in my life to be here.
Mm-hmm. What would that sacrifice be?
Oh, it depends. It may be a friendship. It may be time with kids. It may be time with your husband. It may be time on yourself. It may be time on a hobby. It just depends on what is the thing you can sacrifice at that moment.
Yeah. Or if you think that's different for guys?
I mean, hearing that, I would say no, because I mean we feel the same. I mean, I know for me personally, it's like I think about it all the time. Of like, I mean that balance of being at work and then being at home and having something left to give, you know, is I don't think that's like just exclusive to women or whatever. But I can fully understand that. I think communication is going to be the key for sure. I mean, even in my own marriage, like, I mean, I think you can tell if your partner is drowning, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean, communication is going to be, I mean, because I think that's, you have to talk about how to delegate, you know, maybe a little bit, because times are different, you know. It's not the 1930s where, I mean, some people get to, you know, stay at home and that's fine. But a lot of times it's, you got both people in the house working. And so it's like you can't have those traditional roles like necessarily like you used to. Yeah. You know, it's not as feasible as it once was. Not saying it doesn't happen, but so in our circumstance, you know, I'm always trying to just trying to hear out like what I can do, and I'm also too on the side of like I was talking to Jeremy yesterday about obligation. Like I don't really want. I don't want my wife to feel obligated to do nothing, you know. Like, if you don't feel like cooking, we'll go out to eat or whatever, but I don't want you to be upset about doing that or upset about cleaning the house. I'd rather you not, you know. We'll just do it together later on or something. Just because it's like, I'd rather it not be a sore spot, you know, like what you're saying with the dishes not being done or whatever. I'd rather just not, you know, if it's going to stress out or whatever. And so I just think it's definitely going to take communication and understanding. You know, everybody's different, you know, but yeah, I mean, that'd be my thought on it for sure.
I think the really crazy thing, for sure, like, that's incredible that you can just say, hey, for sure, if we don't feel like it, please don't stress yourself out about it. Yeah. But the really hard part is saying, hey, just don't stress yourself out about it. It's so hard because definitely if I come home after a long day, there's been times where Cricket said, if you don't feel like cooking, then don't cook. But in my head, I'm like, I've already laid this out. If I don't go ahead and cook, it is a failure of a day. Yeah. That was just one more thing to write off as an X on my end. Yeah. And so and it's hard. It is a whole readjustment on the way you think, because it is hard to, even if you take the expectation off the table. Yeah. Mine are still there. Right. Mine are still sitting there just staring at me like,
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
you did it again.
Yeah.
Do you think that like that expectation that you just mentioned like is placed on your shoulders from society or just a battle in your own mind?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both. I think that for sure society has this is what a woman is supposed to look like. A woman is supposed to, and I may be wrong, but from my perspective, it feels like society thinks this is how a woman is supposed to look. This is how a woman is supposed to act. This is how a woman is supposed to dress. This is what a woman is for. And so to me, it feels like society puts that pressure on. I mean, I even think through the lens of like our children. It was never a thought that our boys would ever help babysit our youngest. It was always a thought that if someone had to watch Ella, it would be my daughter. And that is just, I did that. You know, like if someone needed to do the dishes, we would ask Caroline to do them. If someone needed to take the trash out, we would ask the boys to do it. If someone needed to help in the yard work, we would ask the boys to do it. If someone was going to help me dust, Caroline and Ella are going to help me do it. It is a natural thing, I feel like, in society.
Yeah.
That you assign these roles. I mean, and it's frowned upon when you deviate from that, when you do something different. But then also, I think internally, the bar is set with some things that, hey, this is where this needs to land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see like the roles, you know, being assigned just in society. And I think that, you know, it's every household is different.
Yeah.
And I think that not every single role is fulfilled by what would be like considered cliche, you know.
Right.
But there is an underlining tone when people, if you're asked about it, even if it's not necessarily being executed that way in your own home, like you're like, well, you know, this is the job for so-and-so. This is the job for so-and-so, you know. And I think that the way that my wife and I have approached it has not necessarily been the right way by any means, because I'm as flawed as it can get. But I feel like putting myself and my desires to the backside and putting service up toward the front shifts, where if you're, especially with your children, with them seeing what you're doing and how you're doing it in the home and outside the home, you know, what roles or what tasks or whatever you should end up taking on to complete. You know, if you do it a mixture of not necessarily, well, like this is this and this is this, or she does this and he does that, but like, how can I serve my other half, you know? And then it puts you in a position to do things that might not necessarily be defined by society, you know? Yeah. And executing that over time sets the example for the next generation to see and experience, which then maybe hopefully can bend, you know, that typical or traditional or whatever you may call it, you know, roles, you know, and what they do, you know, or.
Yeah.
But I think that, like you said, takes time.
Yeah. It does. You know? And I think too, it's changing even the verbiage of it, that I mean, it was some silly video, but it was talking about how for a mom to like take her kid to the park, it's just normally what a mom does. But like if a dad were to take oh my gosh, they're such a good dad. And it's like, no, they're just a dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're just being a dad. They're just doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But there is that expectation of Well, mom's doing what she should be doing, but if the dad does it, it's so
Yeah.
special.
Well, I agree. I agree. Because one thing that I always hear, like, just nonchalantly said all the time is like, if the mom's going out with some girls, it's like, well, the dad's going to stay home and babysit.
Babysit.
Man.
Yes.
And
it
I'm
makes
like,
me crazy.
What? Like, what are you
Yes.
talking about? Those are your kids. You ain't babysitting. You're just being a dad,
Yeah.
Or and I am so guilty of this, but like if I have to go out of town for work, that I have meal prepped, I have planned meals, I have already cooked them so that all Craig has to do is heat them up. And in my head, I'm like, when he goes out of town, he doesn't think two things about what I'm going to have for dinner. He knows that it's going to be taken care of. But that, again, is one of those expectations that for sure I put on myself that, all right, I've left a list of, hey, this is how you do this and blah, blah, blah. But again, if I do it, it's, oh, well, she's just making sure everything's in place before she leaves. If he did it, it would be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Look at how incredible he is. It's like, no, he's just helping.
Yeah.
He's serving.
I get it. I get it. And so from my perspective, it's like, all right, it's not necessarily fitting in the category of like right and wrong, but it's like, okay, I see it. I know it. So what would your opinion be with like, all right, we know that there's these underlying tones on these certain things. How can men cross that bridge to help the transition in a perspective shift?
I think that it's going to, if I'm honest, I think it's probably going to be, it could be an easy battle, but I don't think so. Because there's that sense of failure. Like if something happened to you guys and you weren't able to provide for your family, that would be a huge failure on your shoulders, right? Like that would hurt your pride a little bit. You'd be like,
yeah, for sure,
struggle with it. So I think through the lens of women, if like you were to just storm into your house today and be like, I'm cleaning the house, I'm going to do this, I'm taking everything off your plate. In a woman's mind, immediately she'd probably think, oh, clearly I'm doing a terrible job. And that's why he feels like he has to step in and do this because I suck. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, going back to the communication is key. Listening, kind of being as in tune as you can to your partner. And even if that's a female, a wife with her husband, like just being in tune to, hey, I feel like there's some tension here. I feel like there's some exhaustion. I feel like there's some just being tired. I wonder if I can just ask a question and just let that question sit and be patient and wait for the response. And then once I get the response, do something about it. And even if it's, I'm really tired, then taking that time to say, would it be helpful if I took the kids and got something to eat and I can bring you home something? Would it be helpful if I took care of the dishes tonight? Would it be like just asking some of those questions? Because I think it will be a slow transition for women to give up some of those things so that they don't feel like a failure, that they feel like a partner.
Mm-hmm. What about within the workplace?
Well, I'm still working on that. I don't know. That is really hard. Because while I work, I would 100% love to stay at home, but I also love working. So it is a hard thing. Mm-hmm. I think, and I may get shot down for this. I want, right, 100%. I want to be valued for the uniqueness that I bring to the table as a woman. I don't want to be a man at the table. I don't want the same expectations that are on men to be on me. I don't want the same expectations on me to be on a man. I'm different. I'm supposed to be different. I'm supposed to bring that difference to the table. And so I think creating a space where I'm heard, my opinions are valued, my time is valued, my priorities are valued, and not be made to feel guilty that I do value different things. Mm-hmm. Because I think I'm uniquely wired to do that for a reason. And so, again, I think it's valuing women for the fact that they're women, and not saying, well, if you want a place at the table,
Yeah.
you gotta look like a dude and act like a dude, and your expectations should be like a guy's, and it's not that. I think that, again, it should be open communication. Women can sometimes be a little less logical than guys. So if I'm having an emotional moment, don't make me feel bad for having an emotional moment. It's okay that I'm that way.
Yeah.
But listening, and then instead of jumping into fix-it mode, which I think guys like to do quite often.
The solution-minded.
But just listening, and maybe, again, asking the question of, okay, so what does that mean, or what do you need? Or is there a solution that I can help with? Asking to be invited into, I think maybe the solution process would be helpful, instead of just being like, well, this is what we're going to do. Well, this is how you should have done it. Well, this is how it could have been. So I think, I don't know. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah. Aren't we all?
Yeah.
So how, like this, the next question that comes to my mind kind of fits in line with what you were just kind of walking down. But how do you think that men and women can work together to set or make those expectations clear?
It'd be crazy to say start fresh, but I almost think like taking all the, which again, it's stupid hard, but taking all of the ingrained expectations, the traditional expectations, the society's expectations, your expectations, just taking all of those kind of off the table and looking at it through the lens of, okay, well, who's actually really gifted at this? And maybe exploring that through that lens. Also, I don't know that you can ever be too clear with expectations. I think people get in so much trouble thinking that they know what's expecting of them.
Assumptions get you nowhere.
Right. We know what assumptions do. So I think you can never be too clear. Even if you're like, hey, I want to know your expectations of me, and I'm going to tell you what I think your expectations of me are. And then I'm also going to tell you what my expectations are. But I think just over communication. I mean, I don't know that you can ever over communicate enough. I've never heard of anyone saying, well, it would have been fine if we had communicated less. It's just, right, like that's not a thing.
Yeah, I think something that I've been tackling, like personally in my own mind with thoughts that has, and this is probably going to sound really simple, and like everybody's going to be like, yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, but like it seems as if there's an underlying like just attitude in today's world where people are so sure of things.
Right.
And their opinion is the right way,
the only
and
way.
there's no ands, ifs, and buts, right? And it's like, I think back on that because I can fit in that same category a lot.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, well, yeah, I'm right, and this is why, But then as I really think through that mindset, I'm sitting there and going, how many things have I been sure about, like without question, that as time passes, I realize, well, that wasn't right, and it wasn't sure, And so, like, when you're in moments of, especially with relationships, male or female, are you stopping to ask the question, what makes you so sure about this?
Yeah.
And sometimes the answer may be, I am sure, but a lot of the times it could be, well, I haven't really thought through it from any other perspective other than what's in my own head, So then you step into a position or a posture of that can be more leaning toward pride side of things than humility side of things, and it might not even be a something that would necessarily be deemed as like prideful, where you're like, well, I'm not arrogant, like saying it's my way or the highway, but just the stance and the posture of how you approach a particular subject, can be just like you've already made up your mind before you even enter into the conversation. And I think that could be a dangerous spot because it closes our ears off with exactly what you're talking about. Like what I'm hearing you saying is just encourage people to listen and to think outside the box of what they're typically looking through, step outside that and have an open mind to maybe approach accomplishing goals or executing tasks, whatever it may be, from a more open mindset rather than just like, well, this is how I've done it in the past and it's been successful, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to attack that task or achieve that goal in the same way every single time.
No, for sure. I completely agree. And I think that a lot of times what gets people in trouble in those situations where maybe they seem more arrogant, they seem more like they don't want to listen, they don't want to ask those questions, is that they just assume that that person's fine. They just assume because it's easy to walk a mile in someone's shoes when you hear their story for the first time. But if you've seen someone in life, whether it's a coworker, a partner, a friend, or whatever, like, and you can be like, well, they're fine. They got themselves into this mess. So if they're burning the candle at both ends, it's because they brought this on themselves. Whereas if you look at it from a fresh perspective of, okay, well, let me be a little more empathetic with this person that I love. I care about them. They are important to me. I would consider them someone that I would want to protect and hold close. If you look through the lens of that, and like how you would look through the lens of if you met a stranger on the side of the street and you heard their sob story and it broke your heart, like obviously you would think, oh my gosh, if I were to walk a mile in their shoes, it would break my heart. But again, that person that you love and care about, it's like, they kind of do it to themselves. It's a completely different perspective. Because I do think that you kind of build a wall almost of, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
They'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, and I'm going to probably botch this little saying.
Great.
Yeah. But, and I even have it like on in my office, like on a Post-it note, so I should have it memorized, but I do not. But it says the level of frustration that you experience typically is related to how your values are being executed.
Say it again.
The level of frustration one experiences is typically directly related with how your values are being executed. So would you say this topic fits that?
I would say so.
Yeah, it's a matter of perspective too, because just for for my wife, she just did a fast, and on the backside of that, she was saying, so she stays at home and works from home, and so she was saying on the backside of the fast that she had recognized that she had missed opportunities to worship, right? So like even cleaning the house, where it seemed like something I got to do. Once she changed once she realized that like I'm actually blessed that I get to do this, or it seemed to help her feel less overwhelmed with it, which that's tough. Just work from home and stay. She'll never get a break, you know? And so I applaud her for what she does, but I know that in times it's like she can feel overwhelmed with the kids, and it's not she loves her kids, and so 100%. Then those feelings of feeling overwhelmed,
then you feel terrible.
Yes, so she'll feel guilty for feeling overwhelmed, and I'm like, yeah, it's amazing, and so to go through that fast and then to come out and have that perspective, as we're sitting here talking, it just seems super relevant. But because if you when she kept that perspective, then it's like now I can enjoy these tasks that seemed like a mountain to climb before, and now I can find a way to maybe enjoy it a little bit more, or to connect with the why of what I'm doing, so
For sure.
But, I mean, just the women are hard on themselves, though, for real. Like,
yeah, I was just
big
thinking
time.
at some point she's going to be like, I'm not enjoying this. And she's going to feel so guilty for not
Yeah.
pressing into that time of worship and being grateful and feeling blessed to be able to do those things. And that's the really terrible part. And not that men don't do the same thing. I think women internalize it and we harp on it almost to death.
Yeah.
Like we can't let it go. And we will lay awake at night thinking about it, replaying it in our head, all the things we missed, all the failures we had. The fact that when our kid yelled for us to please just come give them one more hug after the millionth time of it, and you're like, just go to bed. But it's just those things that live rent free that, yeah, the one day that she doesn't feel blessed, she's going to beat herself up about it.
I mean, that's what she was with, and that's what I mean is just like, or even like birthing child, which is like,
I mean, if a man has had a cold, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, right. Well,
basically,
there's nothing more miraculous than childbirth, and like, and women will like have a baby and be like, oh, I'm fat. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I understand it, but and it'll be like, men. I'm like, nah, that's y'all. Y'all say that because we don't say that. And so
you're right.
But I'm just saying we're our own worst enemy, and that's for men and women in general. But I'm just saying, like, women really do beat yourselves up a lot for. I mean, like, I there's nothing wrong with being overwhelmed, and so to say, oh, I feel overwhelmed in the day because I haven't had a break, I completely understand that. But then on the backside to say, I feel guilty for feeling overwhelmed, I'm like, yo, this is the next level right here, because it's like, who doesn't get overwhelmed at some time, with something?
Yeah,
and
but
it's
in
okay,
your head, as a mom, you feel like you shouldn't, because there is, I would murder someone over my kids.
Yeah.
And then to say, I just need 30 minutes away from them, it feels like I have just severed half of who I am.
Yeah.
And you feel so guilty, but you also, there's a part of you that knows it's needed, but the bigger part of you just feels guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that value piece of the frustration is important in that process, where a lot of the times we think through what we value, but how often do we actually like write those values down and see them on a piece of paper and then evaluate it and say, how do I, or how can I attempt to orchestrate my time so that my values are priorities?
Yeah, but how do you do that when you don't necessarily have full control over how you prioritize?
You
know
control,
what I mean?
a great question.
I have to work. We both have to work. So how do I prioritize when there's already a set of expectations that are non-negotiables?
Yeah. Here's my answer is, I think that you have to think through from outside the box, detach from it, and look at, hey, what work for you? What does that provide towards your values?
You're asking me right now?
Yeah.
I'll have to come back to you. No, I do value what I do. I don't, when it comes to my family, right now, there's not a lot of opportunity where I can invite my family into what I'm doing, because it typically involves other people. Mm-hmm. And just even walking through what they're walking through. So obviously you can't invite your family into that.
Yeah. But how does that work contribute to your family?
Oh, I mean, I think for sure, just the more and more I've learned about like the unique wiring of people, it makes me want to encourage my family to be exactly who they are.
Yeah.
That they are who they are, and it's beautiful and perfect. And so I value them a lot more. I think even the emphasis on healthy families, that, hey, having a healthy family is incredibly important, not just we don't just say it as a foundation church, but we say it. It's the expectations even onboarding as a staff member of, hey, it's important to us that you prioritize your family. And so these are some of the rules that we're going to put in place to do that. That for sure is a value that I know plays heavily into that. Just the protection of it. Also I think about, we talk so much about how we live our lives and what that looks like with our kids and our family. And so knowing that I'm doing things that they can look at and say, okay, I know that my mom is serving God, and it's because she loves and she believes that God has a purpose for her. I think that's really big, especially for my girls.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, it's like when I'm in work mode and I'm engaging in relationships, whether it be with my team or with clients or whatever it may be, I'm engaging in relationship, and so I'm taking those experiences and failing or succeeding, whatever direction it's headed, but still I'm experiencing it. And then on the backside, I'm analyzing, like, okay, what was said? How was it said? How can I take that and apply it and continue to apply it, not just within the workplace, but at home as well? And so I think like you can only control what you can control, right? So we've been placed in this scenario where we're in a society. The Industrial Revolution took place a while ago, so it's drawing, male and female out of the home for work. Then there's, economics involved, where you got supply and demand, all those little principles. So where it takes money to survive and to live. And in today's time, it takes a majority of people, like a 2-income home, to make it happen, just to not necessarily like live the high life, but just living to be able, just exist. Survive. Yeah. So that's out of our control, right? Like, you can't just come in there and just be like, all right, we're going to completely change this whole economic system and inflation and everything that contributes to it, to where I can do what I want when I want to do it, right? And so I think that stepping into those parameters that you have no control over, and then trying to set your own expectations and being clear in communication that are aligned with your values, and if you're married, that they should be the same values that you're working towards as a unit, and then going from there and saying, I'm going to prioritize this, and there's no compromise on it, and so maybe that, it doesn't necessarily have to look like this, but maybe it looks like 5 o'clock hits and I'm headed home. No ands, ifs, and buts. And I'm not saying that that's the answer. I'm just saying, like, that's an example, but setting those parameters so that you are balancing everything that's involved in life and not just one thing. And I think that could be, one positive way to approach the circumstances that we've been dealt, and try to not execute it with perfection, but be more in line with the goal that you and your other half want to accomplish in a positive way. I think there's challenges to that, because there's particular circumstances that, from work side of things, it could say, no, I mean, these are the expectations, and there's no ends, ifs, and buts about that, so what you going to do about it? You have to be here, or you have to do this, which steals time, but that's where the creativeness of who God's made us to be, to where it's like, okay, this moment, this day, this week, this month, whatever it may be, I have to do this, but how can I shift it and make it in a more balanced scenario and make changes in other areas so that I'm not having to sacrifice on the side of my values that are a priority. What do you think is, like, that was a lot of words, and I probably could have summed that up a lot more simpler. Well, I know I could have, but with that being said, if you're following along, you can tell me if you're not. But if that's the goal or a goal, how do you put it together? How do you build it? How do you make it happen?
I know for us, like, it's like it's just like if you see something that needs to be done, just do it. You know what I mean? It's not. It's more of like there's not a responsibility to one person. You know what I'm saying? It's like if she washes or she cooks dinner and I'm gonna wash the dishes. It's kind of like, you know what I'm saying, give and take in order to help with the balance of things. You know what I'm saying? That's what we do. You know, is we just try to like help out where we can. You know, it's not a traditional home where I'm the only person making money, and so, you know, we share the responsibilities of everything together. You know, and to me that's helped us out a lot. You know, because if you try to carry a traditional, if I was to be like, you know, you're in charge of making sure the house is clean, and you know what I mean, it's just like at the end of the day, like as times change, we get in the workforce, we're moving, you know, women being able to vote to, you know what I'm saying, it's like as history progresses on, there's still remnants of that in our society, and so it's like as we move forward, I think it'll get a little bit better with all of that stuff too, you know, because it's like you can't hide behind
people
that.
Adjust.
Yeah, people adjust as time changes, you know.
I agree and I disagree.
Okay.
I agree in that people adjust. I disagree in that we haven't adjusted enough. There's still room for growth. There's still
sure.
room for adjustment. And I feel like we have transitioned into this lull of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And while, yes, I think it's incredible that you share the load. If you see something, do something about it. I also know that I am like, we should have done this yesterday. We got to get this done immediately.
Yeah.
I'm a wipe down the counters as you're cooking kind of person. Like, that's just if I can go ahead and wash it, I'm going to go ahead and wash it and get it out the way.
Yeah.
For sure, in my family, there is zero other people that are that way. And so having those conversations to just be like, hey, dibs on dishes, whatever, to know before I even get home, hey, I know I've been home all day and you're going to walk in and the house is going to be like a tornado has absolutely hit it.
Right.
I'm aware. We're going to clean it up before we go to bed. To go ahead and set that expectation, if you will, to know that, hey, I know you're going to walk in and it's going to make you nuts.
Yeah.
And you're going to be like, I've been gone all day. You've been home all day. This ain't it. But just to go ahead and acknowledge, hey, we're going to get this taken care of. Don't you worry about it. Instead of assuming that, oh, she knows I'm going to take care of it. Yeah. Or she's going to take care of it, because that is what I'm going to think. I'm going to walk in the room and think, oh, of course you're waiting for me so that I can help you clean this up. It's probably not what was expected. Right. It's what I think is expected. Yeah. And so I think, again, just saying it out loud, understanding and valuing that a woman's job isn't just to stay in the kitchen.
Right.
A woman's job is a lot of things. And a man's job isn't just to go work and come home and put his feet up. And I'm not saying that that is at all what you guys do. But again, I think that everyone through a little bit thinks that that's kind of how it could go in a marriage and a home and a whatever. And so for sure, times have changed. But if we're continuing down the path that we're currently on, where more and more women are pulling double duty, more and more women are doing full-time work and full-time home, there's got to be a bigger shift. There's got to be more involvement. There's got to be less expectation for women to do what women have always done, and more expectation of, hey, how can we all carry a load? How can we all be a part of this? And it's not just one person doing everything. It's, hey, I'm really good at this. That village mentality, if you will. I love doing whatever it is. Yeah. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take this off your plate. I think that needs to be.
Do you think we were created all the same to do the same things?
No.
Well, the reason I'm saying that though is like nurturing definitely comes more natural to my wife.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, not to say that I deserve to kick my feet up and get them rubbed as soon as I get home. But I'm just saying, like,
But that's your expectation.
That's
it's
nice.
fine.
There's Brittany, if you're watching this, no. But,
I can't wait to come home.
Right. But there's a stand-up comedian that has like a line about it where he's like, when we're fighting wolves, y'all were good with staying at home,
Yeah.
And all I'm saying
let me go home right now.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying is like, because society is changing, is it because that women want to be in the workforce, or is it because of the prices of things and people have to do what they do to take care of their family? Is there more fulfillment with women trying to carry the load with men, or do we need to, as believers or whatever, but need to focus on more of like trying to get back to where not.
I know what you mean.
I'm not saying like I want to keep my wife under my thumb, but I'm saying she seems, just something personal for us is she has a master's degree.
Yeah.
I don't. So, to say the least. But I'm just saying, I've made the mistake before. One time when she was opening up to me about the overwhelming part, I was like, well, I mean, you got a master's degree. You want to go back to work?
Go on to work.
I'm like, you could definitely crush whatever I'm doing, Yeah. And she's like, no, like you're not hearing me. And I'm like, oh, and that was
because you're problem solving.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, let's solve the solution. But and that's what I'm saying is like, is the solution that everyone gets a seat at the table, or is it that we need to find a route back to why is it that both of us have to work?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to the sense of like, I think my wife would say that she feels more fulfilled being at home with the kids and being able to have that time with them. And I know that because she feels guilty when she has to work, but she has to work. But it's just like, all I'm just saying is are we trying to make an unnatural thing natural? And is that the right thing to go about? You know what I'm saying? Or do we need to take a different approach to be set apart?
Yeah. I think it's a both and, which is a terrible answer. But I think that unfortunately, there's no fixing the economy or society. So I think that there are going to be some homes where require both people working. It doesn't matter the type of sacrifice you may have to give.
Correct.
Both parties are going to have to work. I also know that I know a ton of single women that they are not going to want to live with their parents or someone else and depend on them to provide for themselves. I know that's not going to fly. And I know that they love what they do. They absolutely love it. They can't imagine their life without that fulfillment. It may shift. It may change when or if they choose to become a wife, a mom, any of those things.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a both and. I think that, again, valuing women in that I do think that a lot of women are natural nurturers. I think that some men are natural nurturers. But valuing that and letting people step into those gifts, those natural abilities, instead of making them feel less than because they can't just shut it off.
Yeah. But
just embracing it, I think is huge. And I for sure I will never knock a woman who has the opportunity to stay at home. I will never knock a woman who chooses to go to work and not stay at home for whatever reason. If that's no, this is what I'm supposed to do. I can't imagine staying at home, or I have no choice. I have to work. There's no right or wrong. There's no cookie cutter. Unfortunately, I feel like it's a lot like Pandora's box. Once it's open, I don't know how we shove it all back in there and make it look like it used to back in the day when men worked and women stayed home, and like, you know, the Leave It to Beaver, like, Mrs. Cleaver, come home, let me rub your feet, put your feet up, dinner's ready at 5:30. You know, like, I don't think that that's possible anymore. Because again, Pandora's box has been opened. So this is our new reality. What are we going to do with it? I think what we can't do is ignore it, act like it's possible to go back. Or just, I mean, at some point things will even out. I don't think that's an option. I think our only option is to grow and get better and listen better and lead better in whatever we do, whatever that is, because you lead no matter what. If you're leading well or leading terribly, you're going to lead no matter what. But how are you leading?
Yeah, I think that's dead on. And it answers my next question, which is, what can we do to lead others, you know, to this balance, you know? I think coming to the conclusion in your own mind and realizing that it takes work and being able to step up to the plate and get to work, you know, is an attitude that we just have to have, male and female. You know,
encourage.
Encourage. So, like, you know, my takeaway from the conversation this morning is, listen.
Yeah.
Open your ears and listen and step outside the box that you may not even realize that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because, I mean, as a father of two daughters, you know, I definitely want them to feel empowered to go after whatever they want, you know. So, you know, I always try to, you know, think about that, you know, when, even if, you know, my wife said something that might rub me the wrong way or whatever, or I feel like comparison between the two of us, you know, because it's just like we're created different. So we got, you know, different things on us. But I definitely, I mean, I hope for a future where there's my daughters are heard and respected and stuff like that. So I don't have much experience with women in the workforce because I've cut down trees and now I'm grading. So, you know, not too many women in that scenario. But, you know, I can completely understand that, you know. And I agree. I think we need to communicate better.
You never
listen
know.
better. Yeah,
women could start hopping into that.
Please, no, I'm not saying that women can't.
I mean,
do
ministry,
it, you know?
for sure. I mean, there's been a shift in ministry that, for sure, you've gone back 10, 15 years. If women worked at a church, it was typically a secretary or a children's person, and they did the bulletins, and they answered the phones.
As it should be.
As it should be. Right.
I was just kidding.
As it should. No. I'm glad we've learned so much today, Murphy.
Yeah,
no.
He has listened and stepped outside the box.
Listen.
Any closing thoughts, Brooke?
I don't think so. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you on. Definitely enjoyed hearing a woman's perspective. Gave me something to think about, too. So. But yeah, as always, y'all can reach out to us at masculinerevolution@gmail.com or at Masculine Revolution on Facebook. Until next time.
Join the family.